All right, so we're really diving deep into digital product design today. We're talking about that article you sent over about sprinting versus running a marathon when it comes to UX, especially in the financial world.
Yeah,
It really got me thinking about how we approach design and development in general.
it's a fascinating topic.
Yeah.
And the article makes a really compelling argument for treating digital as a product, not just a channel.
Right. Like it's not just about replicating existing offerings in a digital format.
Exactly. It's about creating something truly innovative and user-centered.
And the article uses that great analogy of Usain Bolt versus Eliud Kipchoge.
Oh, yeah, I love that.
Bolt is amazing, obviously. Like a design sprint, he's all about speed and flash, in and out.
Right, quick bursts of energy.
But Kipchoge, he's strategic, he's consistent, he's in it for the long haul.
Just like building truly great digital product.
Exactly. And sometimes I wish life was more like a sprint, especially when I'm staring down a mile-long to-do list.
Uh-huh, I hear you. But in this case, the marathon approach really is more effective.
It seems counterintuitive, though, right? Like, wouldn't faster be better?
Well, the Envision report that the article mentions actually found that companies with a mature approach to design those marathon runners, they see higher revenue and faster time to market.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. So it really is about playing the long game.
Absolutely.
But the article also makes some good points about the downsides of just doing design sprints. Like, you might solve a problem quickly, but you end up with a Band-Aid solution that doesn't really address the underlying issue.
Right. It's like constantly putting out small fires instead of preventing them in the first place.
Exactly. And those quick fixes can actually lead to a worse user experience down the road.
Yeah. It's like building a house on a shaky foundation. Eventually, it's going to crumble.
So with a long-term UX strategy, you're thinking about building that solid foundation from the start.
Exactly.
So how does that actually play out? I mean, how is a long-term UX strategy different from just doing a bunch of sprints?
Well, your article breaks it down into some key contrasts.
Okay, let's hear it.
So with sprints, you have a short time frame, a narrow scope, and you're mainly aiming for those quick wins.
Yeah, get in, get out, get it done.
But with a marathon approach to UX, you're looking at a much longer time frame, a broader scope, and your goal is to create a sustainable and evolving experience.
It's not just about launching something quickly.
No, it's about constantly iterating and improving based on user feedback.
And that constant feedback loop is crucial, right?
Absolutely. The article highlights how challenger banks are updating their apps every 6 days compared to traditional banks doing it every 50.
Wow, that's a huge difference.
It is. And it shows how committed they are to responding to what users actually need and want.
So we're seeing the benefits of this long-term UX approach. But how do companies actually achieve it?
Well, the article outlines 10 strategies.
Oh, perfect. Let's dive into those.
Sounds good. And it's more than just a list. These strategies show how companies completely shift their mindset about digital shelf.
Love it. Okay, so first up is purpose-driven business, which the article says is key for long-term UX success. We see this a lot now, right?
Yeah.
People wanting to support companies that align with their values.
Yeah, it's not just a trend. It's a fundamental shift. And it goes beyond just marketing. A purpose-driven company will bake their values into the entire digital experience.
Makes sense, like from the language they use to the features they prioritize.
Exactly.
It has to be authentic, which actually makes me think of the next strategy, customer-centered approach.
Yeah.
This one seems pretty obvious, but you'd be surprised how many companies miss the mark.
Yeah.
What are they doing wrong?
I think they're not truly understanding their users. It's not enough to just collect data. You have to empathize with your users, understand their pain points, and design solutions that meet their real needs.
So it's about going beyond those surface-level assumptions.
Exactly. It's about digging deeper and constantly seeking feedback, which, by the way, is a big difference between the sprint and marathon approach.
Oh, right. Okay, I see how that ties back in. All right, next on the list is design thinking. Sometimes that phrase feels a bit abstract, to be honest.
I get that. It's a buzzword that gets thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
But at its core, design thinking is really about putting the user at the center of every decision.
Okay. So understanding their needs, brainstorming solutions, and then testing those solutions to make sure they actually work.
Exactly. It's a very hands-on, iterative process.
Got it. And that ties into the next strategy, design ops, or design operations.
Right. Have you heard much about that?
I'll admit this one is a bit new to me.
Think of it this way. As your digital product grows, the design process can get pretty complex. So design ops is about streamlining everything, having the right workflows, tools, and communication channels in place.
So your design team can operate efficiently and effectively.
Exactly.
It's about setting your design team up for success in that marathon, making sure they have the right infrastructure and support.
Exactly. And that kind of efficiency becomes even more important when you're dealing with a complex digital ecosystem, which is the next strategy the article dives into.
This is where we talk about how frustrating it is when a company's digital experience is all over the place, right?
Precisely. Think about it. You're using a banking app. Then you visit their website. And then you have to use their ATM. And each one feels completely different.
Yeah.
It's jarring. It's confusing.
So frustrating.
Right. A unified digital ecosystem, on the other hand, feels seamless and intuitive,
Right.
like everything belongs together.
Makes sense. And I imagine that constant innovation plays a big role in keeping that ecosystem fresh and relevant.
Absolutely. The tech landscape is constantly changing, so companies need to be ready to adapt.
So this is where that marathon mindset really comes into play.
It is. It's not just about keeping up with the latest trends. It's about anticipating what's next and having a roadmap for how your digital product will evolve.
So it's not about chasing shiny objects. It's about having a strategic vision for how technology can enhance the user experience over time. I like that. Okay, on to the next strategy. Digital authenticity. What exactly does that mean?
This is where things get really interesting. We often talk about brands being authentic, but what does that look like in the digital world? It goes beyond just having a consistent logo and color scheme.
Yeah, it's more about how the entire experience feels right. Like, does it genuinely reflect the company's values and personality?
Yes, it's about using the right language, visuals, and interactions to create a digital experience that feels true to the brand and resonates with users on an emotional level.
All right, so it's not just about being visually appealing. It's about creating an experience that feels genuine. And then we have storytelling, which sounds pretty powerful.
It is. People are naturally drawn to stories, and when companies can tell a compelling story through their digital products, they can create a much deeper connection with users.
So instead of just presenting features and benefits, you're creating an experience that feels more engaging and memorable.
Exactly. And that brings us to the next strategy, which is open mind. I know it sounds simple, but it's incredibly important for long-term UX success.
Because you have to be willing to admit when something's not working right?
Exactly. It's about constantly gathering feedback, analyzing data, and being open to making changes based on what you learn.
No matter how attached you might be to a particular design or feature,
Right.
if it's not serving the user, you have to be willing to let it go. Okay, last but not least, we have digital-driven culture. This sounds like it goes beyond the design team.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
A digital-driven culture means that everyone in the company, from the CEO to the customer service reps, understands the importance of creating a great digital experience.
So it's about breaking down those silos and making sure everyone is aligned on the importance of digital. It's almost like that marathon mindset has to permeate the entire company culture.
Exactly.
I like that. So this all comes back to that key distinction between channel and product that we were talking about earlier.
Right. And we're about to dig deeper into how those mindsets manifest in the real world.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to talk about strategies, but it's another to see how those strategies translate into tangible differences in the user experience.
Let's do it. I'm ready to see how these mindsets actually play out in the wild.
Me too.
Yeah.
So let's get specific. The article contrasts those 10 strategies across both mindsets.
Okay.
For instance, a company with a channel mindset might invest in a website once and consider it done. Set it and forget it.
Right.
But a company thinking about digital as a product would be constantly analyzing user data, looking for ways to improve the experience.
Yeah.
It's like the difference between letting your garden grow wild versus tending to it carefully and making sure it flourishes.
Oh, I like that analogy. And I bet the investment difference is huge, too.
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
The article points out that companies stuck in a channel mindset often underinvest in design and development.
Yeah. They probably see it as just a cost.
Right? A cost center, not a growth driver.
Yeah.
But for product-focused companies, investing in top-notch digital talent and technology is a no-brainer. They understand that a great digital experience is an investment that will pay off in the long run.
It's like they're saying, if you think good design is expensive, try bad design.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that difference in investment directly impacts the user experience.
Yeah.
When a company is willing to invest in creating a seamless, intuitive, and even delightful digital experience, users notice.
They feel valued.
They do. And they're more likely to stick around.
It's like the difference between going to a restaurant where the food is just okay and going to a restaurant where every detail from the ambiance to the presentation is thoughtfully considered. You're willing to pay more for that elevated experience, right?
Absolutely. And that's what we're seeing in the digital world. Customers are becoming more discerning. They're not just looking for functionality. They're looking for a holistic experience that aligns with their values and meets their needs in a way that feels effortless and enjoyable.
Okay, so that brings us to the next contrast. Focus. The article says that a channel-focused approach often leads to a fragmented experience.
Yeah. Different teams working in silos, each with their own priorities.
Right.
But with a product mindset, everyone is focused on creating a unified and seamless journey for the user.
Which is so important. Think about a company that offers both online and in-store shopping. If they're stuck in that channel mindset, their website and their physical stores might feel completely disconnected.
That's the worst.
The branding might be different, the product information might be inconsistent, and the overall experience might feel disjointed.
It's so frustrating.
I've definitely experienced that before.
We all have. But with a product mindset, the company would be thinking about the entire customer journey, both online and offline,
Right.
and making sure that every touch point feels connected and consistent. They're thinking holistically about how to create a cohesive brand experience regardless of where the customer interacts with them.
And I imagine that innovation is crucial for maintaining that kind of cohesive experience as technology evolves.
You're right. With a channel mindset, companies tend to be more reactive.
Oh, so they're playing catch-up.
Yeah, trying to keep up with the latest trends without a clear vision of where they're going. But with a product mindset, they're more proactive.
No, they're looking ahead.
They are, anticipating what's next and figuring out how to integrate new technologies in a way that enhances the user experience.
So it's not about chasing shiny objects. It's about strategically integrating new technologies in a way that makes sense for the product and for the user.
Exactly. And that kind of forward-thinking approach can lead to significant competitive advantages. Think about companies like Tesla or SpaceX.
Yeah, they're definitely not afraid to push boundaries.
They're not just innovating for the sake of innovating. They're innovating with a clear purpose. And that's what sets them apart.
And I bet customer satisfaction is a lot higher when companies are actively innovating and improving their digital products.
Absolutely. When users see that a company is constantly striving to make their experience better, they feel valued, and they're more likely to become loyal customers. On the other hand, if a company is stuck in a channel mindset, they're more likely to neglect their digital products, leading to frustrated users and high churn rates.
It's like the difference between a friend who always shows up for you and a friend who only reaches out when they need something.
That's such a great analogy.
Yeah.
And that same principle applies to employee engagement. When employees feel like they're contributing to a truly great product, something that they're proud of, their motivation and morale skyrocketed.
Yeah. It's about feeling like you're part of something bigger than yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that sense of purpose and ownership can be incredibly powerful.
It sounds like building a digital-driven culture is all about creating that environment where everyone feels empowered to contribute to the success of the product. And the article actually highlights how this translates to better decision-making, too.
Right. With a channel mindset, decisions are often made in silos without much consideration for the overall user experience.
Right.
But with a product mindset, decision-making is more collaborative and holistic. Everyone is working together to figure out what's best for the product and for the user.
So it's less about individual departments protecting their turf and more about everyone working together towards a common goal.
Exactly. And that kind of cross-functional collaboration can lead to some really innovative solutions that wouldn't have been possible otherwise. Think about the iPhone. It wasn't just the result of a brilliant design team. It was the result of engineers, marketers, designers, and executives all working together to create something truly exceptional.
It's a great example of what can happen when everyone is rowing in the same direction. And speaking of competition, the article mentions that companies stuck in a channel mindset often struggle to differentiate themselves.
Right. They're essentially offering the same basic services as everyone else,
They're playing it safe, not taking any risks.
and ultimately blending into the background.
Yeah.
But companies that embrace a product mindset, they're not afraid to stand out. They're constantly looking for ways to innovate and create unique value for their customers.
They're not just following the pack, they're setting the pace.
Exactly. And that's what ultimately leads to market leadership. Think about companies like Netflix, Spotify, or Airbnb.
They're disruptors for sure.
They didn't just disrupt their industries, they redefined them. They did it by creating products that were so compelling, so user-friendly, and so innovative that they completely changed the way we consume entertainment, listen to music, and travel.
Those are some pretty inspiring examples. And it's amazing to see how this shift from a channel to a product mindset can have such a profound impact, not just on the success of a company, but on entire industries.
It really is a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
And as we move further into the digital age, this distinction is only going to become more important.
So how do companies actually make this shift? I mean, it sounds great in theory, but I imagine it's not always easy to change ingrained mindsets and processes.
You're right, it's not a quick fix. It requires a fundamental shift in thinking. But the good news is that the article provides some concrete examples of how companies can start making the transition.
Okay, I'm all ears. I'd love to hear some real-world examples of how companies are putting these principles into practice. So give us some examples. How does this actually work in the real world?
Well, the article highlights how companies approach things like strategy.
Okay.
A company stuck in a channel mindset might just set up their website and forget about it.
Right. Yeah, makes sense.
But a company with a product mindset, they'd be constantly analyzing user data, A/B testing different features, making tweaks to improve the experience.
So they're not just launching it and hoping for the best?
No, they're constantly iterating and improving, being proactive and responsive.
Like Kipchoge adjusting his pace throughout the marathon.
Exactly. And the article also talks about the difference in investment.
Right.
A channel-focused company might see design and development as an expense to be minimized.
Something to cut back on if they need to save money.
Right. But a product-focused company, they see it as a critical investment in their future success. They're willing to pay top dollar for talented designers and developers.
Because they understand the value those people bring to the table.
Exactly. It's like investing in the best running shoes and training equipment if you want to win a marathon. You wouldn't skimp on the essential tools.
Right. And this difference in mindset also shows up in how companies approach customer feedback.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The article mentions that companies with a channel mindset often view feedback as a nuisance, like something to be dealt with rather than embraced.
It's like they're running a race with earplugs in,
Yeah.
completely ignoring the cheers and advice from the sidelines.
Wow. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
But companies with a product mindset, they're actively seeking out feedback, using it to inform their design decisions and making sure they're building something that truly meets the needs of their users.
So they're running alongside their customers, listening to their needs, and adjusting their course based on what they learn. I love that. And the article gives a really interesting example of how this plays out in the banking industry. It contrasts those traditional banks, which are often slow to adopt new technologies and update their digital offerings, with challenger banks, which are much more agile and responsive to customer demands.
Right, those challenger banks are like the sprinters, constantly pushing the pace and forcing the traditional banks to up their game.
It's good for competition.
It is, and the article argues that this is ultimately good for everyone because it leads to a more competitive landscape and a better overall experience for customers.
A rising tide lifts all boats.
Exactly.
But I think the most compelling part of this whole article is its emphasis on how this shift from a channel to a product mindset can actually lead to a more human-centered approach to business.
I agree. When companies view their digital offerings as products, they're more likely to focus on creating experiences that are not only functional, but also enjoyable, meaningful, and even delightful.
It's not just about efficiency.
No, it's about seeing technology not as a cold, impersonal tool, but as a way to connect with people on a deeper level and enhance their lives.
Then that's what makes this whole conversation so exciting, right?
It is.
It's not just about building better websites or apps. It's about using technology to create a better world for everyone.
Absolutely. And that's something worth striving for.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you hope our listener takes away from this conversation?
I'd say it's this. Start paying attention to the digital experiences you encounter in your daily life. Which ones feel like well-designed products and which ones feel like afterthoughts.
Like which companies are really putting in the effort.
Yeah. Which ones are genuinely trying to make your life better and which ones are just trying to get you to click a button or buy something.
And once you start noticing those differences, you can't unsee them, right?
Exactly. And the more we demand better digital experiences, the more companies will be forced to deliver them.
It's like voting with our clicks and our dollars. We have the power to shape the digital landscape, but only if we're aware of the choices we're making.
That's a great way to put it. So be mindful, be discerning, and don't settle for mediocre digital experiences.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for taking this deep dive with me.
Of course. This was fun.
And to our listeners, we'd love to hear your thoughts. What are some of the best and worst digital experiences you've encountered? Let us know. We're always up for another deep dive.
Until next time.